Hello, today is Coaching Friday. We're talking specifically today about carbs and cravings, and I'm also going to answer your weight loss questions live. I got a ton of questions this week. Oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. And if you're just joining us now, it is Weight Loss Coaching Friday. Welcome. My name is Megan Olson, nutrition practitioner. I myself lost 80 pounds in 2009, and now I help women over 35 lose 20 to 50 or more pounds, feel amazing, feel great about themselves, and keep that weight off for good. So if you're just joining us, say hi. And if you did not submit a question, feel free to submit a question in the comments. I might not quite get to it today because I have so many, but I think what I'll do is do another one of these coaching sessions next week so that we can get through all the questions. So go ahead, ask a question if there's something that you've been struggling with. I know a lot of people are struggling right now, so this is part of the reason why I'm doing this. So let's get right to it. We're going to talk a little bit about carbs and cravings. That's going to be the training part of today's Coaching Friday, and then we'll get right into the Q&A from you guys, okay? So carbs and cravings. Okay, so a few things. We get cravings from many different things, and sometimes those cravings are from stress, anxiety, fear, depression, so emotional reasons, right? Or sometimes cravings come from not having the right nutrition in our bodies, eating too much sugar, flour, chips, those kind of things, or just lifestyle things like stress, lack of sleep, those kind of things, right? So there's kind of these two different areas that cravings can come from. So we're going to really hone in on one specific area today that I see women over 35 consistently doing. And again, if you're just joining us, say hi in the comments, give me a like, let me know that you're here watching. We're talking about cravings and carbs, and then I'm going to be answering some of your weight loss questions live. Again, if you're struggling with something with weight loss, just put it in the comments below. I might not get to it today, but I will definitely get to it next week. Okay, so when it comes to carbs and weight loss, what I tend to find that women who have 20 to 50 or more pounds to lose, what they're doing is they're cutting out all carbs or eating very, very few carbs to lose weight. And this is actually a common myth that women believe. And you know, the thing about carbs is they're not your enemy. Food is not your enemy. In fact, you can enjoy all food in moderation. And that is something that I really hone in deeply with the women that I coach. You can have all food. All food should be included in your diet plan. It should not be something where you are eliminating pizza, eliminating, a bagel. Those things, you just need to learn the right tools and processes to be able to incorporate those things into your diet. So specifically about carbs, there's a lot of unnecessary confusion about carbs out there. And here's why. 3 reasons. Number 1, carbs are necessary to build and maintain healthy hormones. Okay, so when you start a diet, the natural tendency that most women have is they start cutting out all the carbs, right? And then suddenly, I don't know, 3-4 days in, they start to feel really low energy and they're starting to crave a lot of carbs. It's because you cut out all the carbs, and those carbs are really necessary not only for your energy levels to maintain them at a certain place where you feel really good, but also to maintain those healthy hormones. So you really start to feel like crud because you just are not getting enough of those type of nutrients in your diet. Carbs are nutrients, okay? So, and the second reason that carbs are really necessary is that they balance insulin, leptin, ghrelin. These are your fat storing and hunger hormones. So guess what? You don't get enough carbs in your diet, 3 to 4 days in, you've restricted carbs, and then all of a sudden you're feeling really low energy, and then you just want to eat all the sugar, you want all the fruit, the quick sugary types of foods. And it's really normal for you to be feeling that way because you've cut them all out. And your body is literally saying, no, I need these things. So insulin, leptin, ghrelin, these 3 hormones that control how you store fat and how you actually burn fat, are now freaking out. They're all going, what's going on? You're not feeding me enough of the right foods. And then the last reason why carbs are so important is because carbs are needed for thyroid hormones. Okay, and carbs are also needed for reproductive hormones. So ladies over 35, you really need to hear this, especially if you're somebody who has Graves' disease, Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism. I have Hashimoto's, and one of the major mistakes that I made before I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, I knew I had hypothyroidism. But one of the big mistakes that I made was I cut out all these carbs and went paleo. And you know what? I felt horrible. And it really, after I started doing some research, scientific research, I realized that carbs were necessary to help my body actually produce active thyroid hormone. So you have inactive thyroid hormone and you have active thyroid hormone. And if you don't get enough carbohydrates in your diet, then you cannot produce enough of that active thyroid hormone. And when you can't produce enough active thyroid hormone, guess what happens? Energy goes, and you just feel horrible. So you have to have the right balance of carbs in order for your thyroid to produce that hormone and for you to feel really vibrant and great, right? And that's always the key. You don't want to be on a diet where you're trying to lose weight and you're always hungry and you're always craving things and you're just feeling like, you want to sleep all day because you have no energy. Right? No one wants to feel that way, and you shouldn't feel that way when you're trying to lose weight, okay? And the other thing is about reproductive hormones. A lot of times women have PCOS or they have too much estrogen in their body and they cut out carbs. That is a myth, okay? So some carbs are really, really necessary in order to help your body actually flush out the excess insulin, the excess estrogen. Right? So if you're not getting enough of those carbs, your body really isn't going to do that as effectively. And you're going to, again, have that low energy. You're not going to feel vibrant and great. Here's the thing about carbs. They're not all created equal. And I think most of us know this, right? Most of us know that heavily processed carbs like white rice, white bread, pasta, things with added sugar. A lot of times we think that flavored yogurt is good for us because it only has 80 calories, but it's loaded with sugar. So those things are not good for us. And things with artificial sweeteners, those increase cravings, and those are carbs. Right? So you're grabbing the equal and all of those things, they're not necessarily helpful, and they are carbohydrates, and some of them are filled with chemicals. So those things are known to cause hormone imbalances that increase your fat storage, that reduce your hunger signals, and increase your cravings. Okay. So those heavily processed carbohydrates, those are the ones that you don't want to cut them out of your diet, but you really want to have them in moderation, right? So it doesn't mean you can never have a bagel. It doesn't mean you can never eat pasta. It doesn't mean you can never have pizza or, have a piece of bread for your sandwich. It just means you have to be really cognizant of what that does do to your hunger and craving hormones and what it does to your taste buds, to your gut health. Because there's a lot of other implications that happens when you eat those heavily processed carbs, right? So carbs like fruits, vegetables, whole grains are actually highly necessary for fat loss, okay? So there was a study that was actually published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2009, and that showed that people who went on a low carb diet and people who went on a high carb diet, they actually lost the same amount of weight. No one lost more weight by going low carb versus high carb. It was equal. And I've actually seen a lot of studies that have had the same results. So cutting the carbs is not really necessary, and it really actually causes a lot of stress for women, I have found, and it just causes them a lot of anxiety because they're not getting the right amount of energy. They're not getting the right carbohydrates in their diet in order to actually, produce that active thyroid hormone and help their hormones out. So it's not really something that should be cut out. The other thing about carbs is that there's one particular group of carbs that is important, like so necessary for weight loss, and we all forget about it, and it's fiber. There was another study published in 2005, and I don't remember the name of the study again. I think it was dietary fiber and body weight. You can Google it. And it showed this important correlation between high fiber diets and weight loss. And if you think about it, fiber, where does fiber come from? It comes from carbs, carbs like raspberries and blueberries and blackberries and quinoa and brown rice and pasta, that's whole grain, those kinds of foods. And most people are cutting out all those foods when they go low carb or they're going keto or paleo or whatever. They're cutting all these things out. And so then they're really confused, like, why can't I lose weight? Well, it's because you cut out the fiber. Fiber is such an important key ingredient to losing weight. right? So if you're not getting enough fiber, you really have to start looking into that and figuring out how can you add that fiber into your diet. And I guarantee the more of that you add into your diet, the less bloated you're going to feel. You're going to have more energy. You're going to go to the bathroom regularly, and you're going to start to see the scale actually move. There have been so many studies throughout the decades and that have shown this one important correlation between weight loss and diet, and it's fiber. High fiber diets reduce body fat and are always directly related to a lower body weight. And there's, so many studies out there that have demonstrated this. Fiber is so, so important. So the truth is, carbs are really not your enemy. And if you're somebody who's struggling with cravings, you really have to think about your carbohydrate intake, your approach to your carbohydrates. And if you're really eliminating that healthy, fiber, which is a component of a carbohydrate. It is a carb, right? And most of the women, I would say 80 to 90% of the women who come and work with me in my weight loss programs, when they start with me, they are not eating these foods. They're not eating that high fiber. Right? They're eating more of the heavily processed things. They're eating a lot of chips, a lot of cookies, and those kinds of things. So if that's something that you're dealing with your cravings, just know that's something that you need to look into. Okay? So if you're just joining us, please, please, please make sure that you let me know in the comments. Also, because I can't see anything. Facebook doesn't actually show me who's on and who's watching. So put something in the comments and let me know. Couple things. I want to talk about some of your questions today, and I got so many questions that I don't think that I'm going to be able to get through all of them today because this would be a really long Facebook Live video. But one thing that I really want to say to you guys is that, this is a really hard time. And, it's okay if you're reaching for food right now, because food is comfort. Food is easy to reach for comfort. And, if you're reaching for a bag of chips, don't worry about it. It's normal. We're all under a tremendous amount of pressure right now with everything that's going on. And it's really normal if you are turning to food a little bit more because of the stress and anxiety of what's happening, right? And, it does really concern me, the number of people I see who are backsliding and eating more processed foods because of the current situation. But just know that it is a normal human reaction. So don't beat yourself up if that is something that you're finding yourself doing more of. The other day I was really stressed out about a lot of things, and I found myself just kind of in the kitchen mindlessly eating my boyfriend's bag of chips, and that's not something I normally would do. And I've got tons of vegetables in the fridge, always cut up, ready to go, and that's usually where I go if I need a quick snack or something in between clients. But I just found myself eating this bag of chips, and then I was like, what am I doing? Why am I eating these chips, right? So I have to tell you that if you're a woman over 35 and you have 20 to 50 or more pounds to lose, that weight loss isn't going to happen in 2 or even 3 months, right? It's going to take time, realistically. But you can absolutely jumpstart your weight loss and not backslide, even in this really hard time. I've got clients who are losing weight every single week right now. And it's actually easier because they're stuck at home and the only thing they can focus on is themselves. You don't have to be one of the millions of people who gain weight during this time, because you're stress eating and you're mindlessly eating. You really do have one of two choices. One is to come out of this crisis heavier than you were before, feeling more anxious, feeling worse about yourself, or we can stop that right now. And I can actually help change those habits right now so that you don't backslide. And in fact, so you can actually start losing weight during this hard time. So if that's something that you want to do during this time, you don't want to come out of this crisis heavier, feeling worse about yourself, and you do want to jumpstart your weight loss, make sure you book a call with me and let's talk through that. Okay, so and the link to book the call, guys, is right above this video that you are watching, okay? And that's free to you. All right, so let's get to your questions. Lots of great questions from you guys today. I love it. So some of these, I'm not gonna get to all of these questions. Some of them I'll save for next week, but here we go. So first one says, and this one's kind of a long one. It says, I can't lose weight. Seriously, the pounds do not come off. This has been a problem for me for a few years. I could not get below 183, but since my last weight loss has shot up to 193 to 198 and won't budge. My husband and I work out and watch what we eat. We eat high protein, low carb, no bread, white flour, sugar, none in the house. He, of course, is in amazing shape. I know. Doesn't that figure your husband or significant other always can eat what they want and do what they want, right? Me, not so much. Cardio 3 to 5 times a week, weights and the Betty Rocker workouts. I'm 52 and perimenopausal. Hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. I've done Weight Watchers multiple times. HCG, grapefruit diet, the cardiac diet, keto, intermittent fasting, and use my Fitness Pal to track everything. You name it, I've probably done it. Recently, I had a stomach bug for a few days, couldn't even lose after that. I mean, really, both ends for 4 days. Again, this isn't something that has recently started, meaning menopause. This is something that I've struggled with for years. Please help. Okay, so I understand your frustration. I really do. So there's a couple of things that you need to think about, okay? Number one is, are you getting those healthy carbs that I talked about earlier, the fiber? Right? So some of the diets that I see that you have done, HCG, grapefruit diet, keto, intermittent fasting, those things really do cut out all those carbs, and generally they cut out fiber. So you may be missing that fiber in your diet. And number two, because you have hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, you need a lot more carbs. That's just a fact. I know we think that carbs make us fat, but it's not the carbs that make us fat. It is having imbalances with insulin, leptin, ghrelin, and eating too much overall calories, right? So those are the two things that are really key for weight loss, and not cutting out food. So look at the foods that you're eating. Are you cutting out any food groups and only eating, protein and fat, and cutting out all the carbs? You need those carbs for the hypothyroidism and the Hashimoto's. Number two is, you talk about doing cardio 3 to 5 days a week. Cut out the cardio. Stop doing cardio. I talked about this in a video a few weeks ago that, cardio, it's really a tricky thing. I know we like to do it. I love to do it because it feels so good, right? To get those endorphins up and to really sweat. But cardio is not your friend when it comes to weight loss. Cardio is actually going to burn through muscle before it burns through fat. So the best things for weight loss are movement. The best things for weight loss are lifting weights. So 3 to 5 days a week, you should be hitting the weights really hard, especially after 35, because after 35, females lose hormones. Hormones start to decline, and guess what? We start to pack on the pounds around the belly. We start to notice that we can't eat everything that we used to without noticing the scale go up. So we really have to be mindful of the type of workouts that we're doing in order to reach our goals. Okay, so backing off the cardio, and that's so important also for insulin management. Insulin is going to affect insulin, leptin, ghrelin, and cortisol. Cortisol is going to be affected by your cardio. If you're working out too much while you're trying to lose weight and your cortisol is always up, guess what? You're going to store more fat. So cardio is not your friend when it comes to weight loss. I know we all think we have to be cardio bunnies. I used to think that too. But after 35, it's not that way anymore because of the declining hormones. So you have to be focusing on movement, weightlifting, and a lot less cardio because you want to manage the cortisol, keep the cortisol really low so that your body learns to burn its own fat. Now, the other thing is, you're talking about that you struggled with this for years, okay? If you have been in a calorie deficit or been dieting for more than 6 months to 12 months, you need to back off and get back to a normal place. And what that's actually called is reverse dieting. So that means you need to get back to a place where you're eating your maintenance calories, okay? Maintenance calories. So if you've been dieting for too long, your body actually adjusts to what you're doing. It down-regulates the metabolism. That's been shown in many, many studies. So you actually want to help upregulate your metabolism so that you can start to lose weight. Now, this might mean that you will gain a few pounds in the interim. And I'm sorry, but that is the only way to reverse what's happening here, is the reverse dieting. So there's quite a few things here that you need to think about. So if you want some extra help, feel free to schedule that free call with me, and we can talk through more of these things with you specifically because you do have a lot going on, okay? But I do hope that helps. Next question I got was, I bake for my son and have found myself baking more, even homemade tortillas, yum, which are too tempting to have in home, but not available at the store. However, I am super conscious of hydrating. That helps my cravings. Okay, so totally normal. We're home right now. We're baking more. We're in the kitchen, which is actually a really good thing. We're making more things from scratch, but it can also be very tempting. So if you're somebody who you make food and you cannot control yourself over that food, you have to keep it out of your environment. It's your environment. You have control over what you make and what you bring into your house. So you got to keep it out of your house, and your family has to be supportive of that. And maybe they have to hide some of that food or put it in another place, or just keep it out of the house until you can get it under control. The second thing I want to say to you here is that, if you are really restricting that food and telling yourself, I can't eat the tortilla, I shouldn't eat the tortilla, I'm on a diet, I'm trying to lose weight, blah, 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 you're going to want it more. Right? It's kind of like the bad boyfriend, the bad boyfriend you've had in your life where you're like, oh, I really shouldn't go out with that guy again, but I really want to because, it's just so much fun. It's kind of like eating the food, right? You feel like I shouldn't eat that food. It's not on my diet. It's not going to help me lose weight. And then the more you think about that, the more you obsess about it, and then the more you're going to just want to go for it. So allowing yourself to eat anything you want is much more liberating, because then suddenly you look at the food and you're like, I can have that anytime. So, and that's something you have to practice. It's not like something that's just going to work one time. You're going to do it and it's going to work, right? You have to really practice deliberately making the choice of saying to yourself, I can have that anytime. Like a tortilla, really? Why am I obsessing over a tortilla? Right? What's more important, the tortilla or my weight loss? So the restrictive mindset is really key, and I can't stress that enough, because I tell people this all the time. Mindset is the missing ingredient in most diet programs, in most weight loss programs. We're not focusing enough on how we're thinking and the behaviors that we've been doing for years and decades, right? And that is what really drives us to overeat, to look at food as good and bad. Those patterns and behaviors, and they have to be addressed, because those are the root causes of why we go back to the restricting and then the overeating and then feeling bad and guilty. And it's just a vicious cycle, and it doesn't feel good, right? So we have to fix that root cause. So really fix that root cause. And it starts really for you with thinking about that restrictive mindset, and also telling yourself, I can have that food anytime. Right? Allow the food. I can have that anytime. And even if you overeat it that one time, get over it. Get over it. I overate it this one time, and you're probably going to understand in your brain that, I overate it and I don't feel so good, but I can have it anytime. Allow the foods. Okay. Let's see. Being stuck in my house every day, sweets and fast food keep calling my name. Oh my gosh, yes. I am not somebody who's a sweets person, but I definitely like the salty stuff, like chips. So I can totally understand where you're coming from. When you're home all day and you're just like, all these things, I really want them, right? So 100%, I think we can all relate to that. And, I will say this, I have been working from home now, running my own business since 2015, somewhere in there. And so, it's really setting yourself up for success throughout the day. When you have sweets in the house, why are they in the house, right? If your goal is to lose weight, why are they there? Because they are not going to help you lose weight. They're not going to serve your goal, right? So that's the first thing. Remember, you control your environment. Number 2, fast food, calling my name. Okay, so sweets, fast food, all of the junk stuff is calling your name. So my question for you is, what is your nutrition looking like? Right? When you are eating enough of the right foods, those things are just totally unappealing. They won't do anything for you. So for instance, if you're getting enough protein, if you're getting enough carbs, if you're getting enough fat, those 3 things in every single meal and snack, then your desire for sweets and fast food go way down. But what I tend to find with the women that I coach is that they're either cutting out the carbs, they're eating too little protein, or they're eating a lot of fat. Okay, so if you're noticing that you're having a lot of sweets and fast foods calling your name, you got to really sit down and think about, okay, am I getting a protein in this meal? Am I getting a fat? Am I getting a carbohydrate that's high in fiber? Those three things. Am I getting those three things in every meal and snack? Because when you are getting those three things in every meal and snack, the cravings are going to naturally decrease. Now, given the circumstances with what's going on in the world, our stress is higher, we're feeling more anxious. So you also want to pay attention to, why are those things calling your name? What are you feeling in those moments? Because maybe you're not really self-aware of the feelings, and maybe that's something that you need to work on, is being more self-aware, right? Not only being aware of the fact that you have the cravings for the sweets and the fast food, but also stepping back and saying, what am I really feeling right now? Am I feeling anxious and that's why I want sweets? Why am I feeling anxious? And really confronting yourself. Because guys, most of the time we turn to the food to fill an emotional reason. And what we really need is a hug, or what we really need is to call our best friend or text somebody or go for a walk and get outside and take a couple deep breaths, right? And say, I got this, we're going to get through this world. It's going to be okay. We need that alternative thing to do. And that's really the thing that we're missing, that is really going to fill us up and make us feel good. Not the sweets, not the fast food. Okay. Next question that I got. And again, if you're watching this, feel free to ask a question in the comments or just give me a like and let me know that you're here. Okay. So next question is continuity. Ability to stick to a plan for a few days and even weeks, but then I have a breakdown meal or even a week. I forgive myself and I start over again, but it's frustrating. I believe it's mostly due to being always hungry and not full after a meal, or any meal actually. I only feel full if my stomach starts to hurt. I enjoy the meals I cook and eat, but cannot get enough of them to feel satisfied or filled. In addition, having grown up in Europe, wine plays a big role with every meal. They are just empty calories, but taste so good, and our association with food and hunger, but also comfort, connection to home, and it's a vicious cycle. Okay. So yeah, definitely. I can understand your frustration here. But there is one good thing that's going on here. You are demonstrating the ability to forgive yourself, move on, and start over. That is amazing, because most people allow it to stop them dead in their tracks, feel like a failure, and they just stop and they backslide, right? So give yourself some credit for the fact that you are getting back on track and that you are forgiving yourself and just moving forward. That is what's so important, okay? So consistency here is a problem for you, obviously, right? I get it. But what I want you to think about is, are you eating enough food? Because if you are always hungry, that's telling me you're not eating enough food. Most women who are dieting, and I'm not really sure what your situation is or what kind of diet you're on or what kind of food you're eating, but most women who are trying to lose weight, they're not eating enough calories. They're eating 1,200 calories or less. Like, I had a client recently who was only eating 800 or 900 calories. That's not enough food. So guess what's going to happen? You go for a few days, and then suddenly your energy goes, and you tank, and then you just overeat, and you just blow your plan. And it's because you just weren't eating enough food. And the second thing to think about is, are you eating enough protein? If you're not getting enough protein at your meals, then you're always going to be hungry, because protein stabilizes hunger. And it's like the number one nutrient that you have to be getting a lot more of if weight loss is your goal. Most of the time, I will give you a stat, 75% to 80% of the women that come and coach with me are not eating enough protein. Not enough. If weight loss is your goal, you have to control hunger. Controlling hunger means enough calories and enough protein. The third thing to think about is, are you getting enough carbs? Because if you're not getting enough of those fibrous carbs that we talked about earlier, which is so important for weight loss and weight management and just having great energy and feeling vibrant, you're not getting enough carbs, it's going to be really hard for your blood sugar to stay stable along with the protein. But if you're getting a little bit of fat and those fibrous carbs and the protein with every single meal, your blood sugar should be staying really stable. So you're having a lot of blood sugar instability. You're saying you're always hungry. Being always hungry means your blood sugar is going like this all day, right? Insulin is such an important hormone to get under control if weight loss is your goal. And you may not even just realize that it's your blood sugar dipping, but being hungry is your blood sugar dipping. The next thing that you can think about is what kind of foods are you eating? Are you eating foods that have a lot of added sugar? Right? There's a lot of healthy looking foods out there that don't have a lot of added sugar. So for instance, if you're somebody who generally eats low calorie, what I tend to find is that people who eat really low calorie, they'll get like an 80 calorie light and fit Dannon yogurt, and it's packed with a bunch of added sugar. That added sugar increases your cravings. And so really reading the food labels and making sure that, you know, how much added sugar is in this product. Most of the food labels now say how much, you know, added sugar has been added to that product. So take a look. My clients are always blown away when they go into their pantry and their fridge and they start looking at, you know, the sauces and the condiments and dressings and flavored yogurts that they're eating, and they see all of this added sugar and they're like, oh, this is what's causing my hunger cravings to go up. So that's also a possibility. So there's quite a few things going on here. You know, I don't know the whole story, but those are some things for you to think about. Again, feel free to schedule a session with me if you want to chat some more. Okay, next question is, I find myself doing well all day long and then I get home to sit and eat processed high carb foods, also eating when I'm not even particularly hungry. Okay, so you're doing well all day long. Are you eating enough food earlier in the day? That's the first question. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're not eating enough calories to make yourself feel really great and keep your energy up, and not getting enough of that balance of high fiber, protein, and a little bit of fat at each meal and snack, then what's going to happen is you're going to come home and you're just going to dive into all the processed foods because your body just doesn't have enough energy. So it's going to look for that quick energy, and processed foods is where we usually get our quick energy from. So pay attention to what you're eating earlier in the day. It sounds like you have an opportunity to do a better job with eating more food for breakfast and lunch to keep your blood sugar stable so that you don't come home and eat the processed food. The second thing I want you to think about is, you know, because you mentioned that you're eating when you're not particularly hungry. And so are you eating for your emotions? Are you eating for boredom? Are you eating because you're anxious or feeling angry and sad during this time? What's going on there? Because there's always something more going on there and deeper. So what is that thing? And that's the thing you need to fix, not the boredom eating. You need to fix the thing that you're feeling. You know, a lot of us eat because we want to avoid feeling something negative. We eat food because we're like, I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to cry. I don't want to be mad. I don't want to feel anxious. And so we just eat. But in fact, the truth is, if we just sat with that feeling that we're having in that moment and acknowledge it, say, I'm really bored. You're going to feel really uncomfortable for about 5 seconds, but then it's going to go away and then you're going to be able to move on. But most of us don't have the patience to really sit with ourselves that way, you know, and say, what's going on here? It's kind of like a self-check-in. What's going on here? Why am I feeling this way? And a lot of times, I think I mentioned this earlier, we just need to get a hug from somebody. We need to call a friend. We need to text somebody. We need to go outside for a quick little walk and take some big, deep, energizing breaths, right? So if you're finding yourself eating when you're not particularly hungry, what's going on? What are you really feeling? Acknowledge it, allow yourself to feel it, and go do something else that really helps you fulfill that, okay? Okay, so we have time for maybe one more question. And if you're watching, let me know if you have any more questions and I'll try to get to them either today or next week. So one more question and then we'll be wrapping up, guys. Okay, I eat way too many carbs. It's like I don't think about what I'm doing when I'm putting it in my mouth. Even when I think about it, I just disregard it. and what I'm doing to myself. Yeah. So carbs, like I mentioned earlier, are a tricky thing, right? There's the carbs that are highly processed, like, donuts and cookies that have a lot of sugar and flour in them. And the tricky thing about those things is that our brain literally gets addicted to them, right? There have been, you can Google this. There are multiple studies that show that high sugar, high flour foods and artificial sweeteners and those kind of things, that they actually have an effect on the brain similar to cocaine. Okay, so it literally has that same effect on your brain like a drug. So it does become addictive. So if you feel like you're just eating and eating and eating and eating, it's because it's an addiction. It's something that has to be addressed. And it can be addressed through food and lifestyle, right? Getting in that high quality protein, high fiber foods, a little bit of fat, checking in with your lifestyle. What's the stress? What's the sleep, right? How much caffeine are you drinking? Are you getting enough water? All of those things, right? And so the fact that you can eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and never really feel full, that's because those types of foods, they block the signals from your stomach to your brain. This is your ghrelin. This is your hormone in your stomach, ghrelin. It'll actually tell your brain to stop eating because you feel full. So when you're eating like chips, for instance, right? You can eat a whole bag of chips, right? It's because that food actually blocks that hormone from talking to your brain. So that's what's going on there. So this is when I say that when your goal is weight loss, it's more than calories. It has to be insulin, leptin, ghrelin, cortisol. Those 4 hormones have to be in check. And they stay in check through the lifestyle choices you make and through the food that you choose to eat. So if you're going to eat something like chips, you need to measure out the portion size and only allow yourself to have that portion size, and then eating a bunch of protein, eating a bunch of fibrous vegetables on the side and a little bit of fat, right? Because it's going to slow down that reaction to your brain that says, oh, I love this food. It's giving me a feeling of high and I want to eat more and more and more and more of it, right? So really measuring out the portion, be mindful of the portion, not really restricting the food, but also having that plan to say, I'm going to eat more protein and fiber and fat to balance it out. So it slows down that response to my brain and I don't feel like I'm out of control eating. And honestly, if you do feel like you're out of control eating, even when you do something like that, then you just got to take the food out of your environment. It should not be in your environment if your goal is to lose weight. Sometimes we just have to break up with foods. And like I mentioned earlier too, if we have a really restrictive mindset around food, the food becomes more attractive. So allowing the food sometimes is going to be more beneficial than just cutting it out altogether, but it depends on the person. Okay, so any other questions from you guys? Okay, so Peggy says, besides apples and raspberries, what else has fiber? Raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, anything that is a berry is going to have fiber. Apples have fiber, brown rice, quinoa, oatmeal, whole grain pasta, chickpea pasta, whole grain bread that's sugar-free. All of those things have fiber, right? And those are mostly the things that we cut out when we go on a low-carb diet or we're just trying to diet in general. We tend to cut all those things out thinking we're bad for us, but they're really, really powerful and good for us. So I hope that answers your question, Peggy. And guys, if you have more questions, feel free to drop them, even if you're watching the replay. I will get to them again next week, I promise you. So again, like I said earlier, you don't have to be one of the millions of people who gain weight during this tough time. I know it's a hard time. I know there's a lot of stress eating and mindless eating. Even I am doing it, but you do have one of 2 choices, right? One is to come out of this crisis feeling amazing, feeling powerful, or, the other is to, come out of this crisis feeling heavier and, more anxious and feeling worse about yourself. So you have to decide which one you want to feel when this ends. And it will end at some point, right? And we will go back to our lives. I'm 100% confident of that. But, we can stop all of that suffering right now. I can help you change those habits right now so that you don't continue backsliding. And in fact, that you continue losing weight, right? So get the help and support you need right now. Even if it's not from me, find somebody who can help you. And again, if you're interested in learning more about my programs and how I can help, I am offering some smaller programs right now for some of you guys that are really struggling financially. So reach out, book that call with me, and I would love to chat with you. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed Coaching Friday. We're going to do this again next week. So if I didn't get to your question, I will get to your question next week. And if you have more questions while you're watching the replay, drop them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them next week. Hope you guys have a great weekend.